Good evening, everyone. I would like to call this meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As part of our reorganization meeting, we will be giving the oath of office to several board members and our district clerk, as well as myself. And I have the pleasure of giving the first oath of office to our district clerk, Mrs. Deborah Carpenter. I have to find the oath. Can you please raise your right hand and repeat after me? I, Deborah Carpenter, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the school district clerk according to the best of my ability. Congratulations. Next, we will be giving the oath of office to re-elected board member Renee Sanchez.
Repeat after me. Okay. I, Renee Sanchez. Do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of a Board of Education member according to the best of my ability.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations, Renee. Next, we have the oath of office to elected board member Mr. Jeffrey Casey.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Mr. Jeffrey Casey, I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of a Board of Education member according to the best of my ability.
Next, we have the oath of office to elected board member Mrs. Sarah Palusio, who seems to have some fans in the stands. So hi, everyone.
I, Sarah. Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Sarah Palusio, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of a Board of Education member according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations. Congratulations, Sarah. My guess is that you will be taking all of your children out for ice cream tonight. Is that part of... Are you all okay with that? Ice cream, dinner. Whatever you want tonight is your night.
This is how it starts.
Can I get a motion for approval of the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Okay, motion approved. Next on our agenda is the election of board president, Board of Education member. Could I get any volunteers for nominations, please?
Yeah, I would love to make a nomination, if I may, for Board of Education President. But before I do, I want to just take a couple of minutes. At our summer workshop today, we spent a lot of time focused on our why our work is so important. And similarly, I thought I'd spend some time tonight talking about why board leadership is so important and why we invest considerable energy to get it right, which is something we've done really, really well for so many years. Our board president, in particular, leads and guides the efforts of our entire body. She facilitates meetings and board retreats. She also serves as Monroe County School Boards Association president and now as past president. She serves as our spokesperson to the broader district community. She acts as a sounding board for our superintendent and as a conduit through which questions are answered and information is shared. And because of her considerable skill and experience, she mentors and supports all of us other school board members. For the past 4 years, our district has been blessed with Amy's outstanding leadership, her creative intellect, and her passion for service. And she's performed these many duties with a balance of a thick skin, a warm heart, and a wonderful sense of humor. So it is therefore with great pride that I nominate Amy Thomas to continue in this role as our Board of Education President for the 2021-2022 academic year.
Thank you, Pete. Can I get a second? Any discussion? Questions? Can I ask for an all in favor? A show of hands. Can we keep our hands up? You're not allowed to vote. No, keep that hand away. Can I get a show of hands again, please? Okay, and any opposed? Let the record show that it is unanimous, and congratulations to Amy Thomas as our board president. And for the Thomas children and husband, thank you for letting your mom serve with us for another several years, as I saw that look. But also the same thing holds true for you. So tonight is your night, whatever you'd like to do. Your mom will take care of you. So at this point, what I would like to do is to offer the oath of office to Board President Amy Thomas.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Amy Thomas,
I, Amy Thomas,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and I will faithfully discharge
the duties of the Board of Education President
the duties of the Board of Education President
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations, Amy, and thank you. Next is the election of our Vice President of the Board of Education. Could I get a call for nominations?
I would like to take a second to offer my nomination. Before I do, I also would like to reiterate what Pete said about the question of why and the importance of why we do this. And along those lines, I would like to take this opportunity to nominate Ted Aresti for Vice President of the Pittsford Board of Education. He has served our community faithfully and has done an outstanding job this past year as our Vice President. Ted not only supports Amy, our board president, in her performance of her duties on a regular basis, but offers consistent support and advice to his colleagues on the board. He is a great resource and advocate for the Pittsford community.
Thank you, Renee. Can I get a second? Any questions or discussion? Can I ask for a call for a vote for all in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And any opposed? Let the record show it's unanimous, and motion is approved. Congratulations, Ted, as your election for Vice President. At this point, we'd like to give the oath of office to Vice President Ted Aresti.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Ted Aresti,
I, Ted Aresti,
do solemnly swear
that
I will support the Constitution of the United States
I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge
that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of the Board of Education Vice
the
President
duties of the Board of Education Vice President
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability. Thank you.
Congratulations, Ted. So my job is done. That's the snippet of power that the superintendent has.
Mike got used to the microphone. It's my turn now. Thank you very much for the comments at the table tonight. It's truly a privilege to serve the community in this way. So, and thank you to our audience members that are here. So moving along with our reorganizational meeting, we have some appointments that we need to, oh, you need the oath of office.
We're going to do nominations.
Hopefully that wasn't a slip.
We do need to do the oath of office to the superintendent of schools, Mr. Michael Pirro. Now we can move along to the appointments. We have a number of people that we need to appoint during our reorganizational meeting. So if I could have a motion to approve the appointments that we have set forth in front of us, I would appreciate that. Thanks, Robin. And Renee, any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. And designations, we need to approve our designations for the year. I just want to make a comment for the audience that our board meetings will be held on Tuesdays this year, and there's a list of all of the dates. And our board retreats are listed, but that may be subject to change because our county calendar has not been confirmed. So those are subject to change.
Can I just add something?
You may.
Just a clarification of why we've moved to Tuesdays. Historically, we've been on Mondays, but we've also recognized that throughout the course of the year, Mondays happen to be often coincided with holidays, and so in order to add continuity, we've made all of our board meetings Tuesdays.
Thanks, Mike. Okay, may I have a motion to approve, please?
So moved.
Thanks, Ted.
Second.
Thanks, Pete. Any questions at the table? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. And moving to authorizations for the school year. If I may have a motion to approve? Okay, I have Sarah and Jeff. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Just want to make sure I'm not missing anything here. Okay, so in the next section, we're talking about board committee appointments, and we do have 2 new board members, so we had a chance, an opportunity to speak with them about what the committee assignments for Monroe County School Boards look like and what those committees do. And so we have determined who will be serving as our liaisons to each one of those committees. So if I may, just run through them. So Monroe County School Boards Association committees, the executive committee, I will be on that as a past president of the association, as well as all of the board presidents of Monroe County are part of that committee. The legislative new committee person representing Pittsford is going to be Robin, and Sarah is going to be the alternate person for Robin. Labor relations, I have Pete and Ted. Information exchange, I have Jeff and Sarah. Board presidents, and that, I still don't have clarification on that, Ted, but it could be board leadership. Both the president and vice president would attend those meetings, or it could just go back to being presidents. It does switch every now and again. COAC, I'm happy to report that Pete will be serving on COAC this year. And the steering committee, I will be a part of that as the MCSBA past president. We also have some district and board committees. We have the legislative liaison, and Robin, I have to thank you for taking that charge. That's a big responsibility, and we appreciate you representing us at the table as our legislative liaison. Our Teacher Center Policy Board will be Sarah this year. Town, Village, and School District Leadership will be the board president, vice president, and superintendent. The Audit Oversight Committee, we've had a change this year, so we have Renee, Robin, and Jeff serving on that committee. District Advocacy, we've made a couple of changes there as well. We are going to have the superintendent, board president, and the legislative liaison. And board self-evaluation, every year we have a board self-evaluation at the end of the year, and we determine what we would like to do in the coming year, and that is remaining community engagement and board insight articles and communications. So for community engagement, leading our effort there is Renee, and we have Sarah and Robin serving on that committee. And board insight and communications, Pete is leading that effort with Renee and Jeff on that committee as well. And I think that wraps up what we have for our reorganizational meeting. And we will move right into our agenda for a regular meeting. I don't know if anyone wants to leave from the audience, or you're welcome to stay. We'd love to have you stay. Okay, we have one departing. We have 3 departing. So we'll move right into
4, 5,
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Wow.
This is not public comment time. This is.
Here are the keys. Okay.
Wave to America.
Can you please state your name and your address?
Okay. If I could call the regular meeting to order at this point. And we do not have to do the pledge. We've already said the pledge. So may I have an approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Thanks, Ted. Ted and Renee. Any edits there? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. And now we have our annual public hearing of the Code of Conduct. Shana Kataya, we welcome you tonight officially, and we look forward to hearing your report.
Thank you. And we're now in the third phase of this work. So the first pieces that you have been able to read through and which are current on our website showing the current code of conduct have that lengthy description of our supportive climate here in Pittsford schools and several pages of the definitions of terms that are located within the code of conduct. And this has been a group that has constituents from all different areas, teachers, students, parents, community members, and then also recently we've brought in the Partners in Restorative Initiatives and the Children's Institute, and they're actually working with myself, and we I was brought in at the end of the school year to work with Dr. Brogan and Greta Johnston to be able to co-facilitate with that group. So we will continue working with them into the new school year. So the rights and responsibilities are the pieces that we're used to seeing in a typical code of conduct, what the students' rights and responsibilities are, as well as anyone who is on school property. And then they also had completed the piece about the complaint procedures and making sure everything was in accordance with the Dignity for All Students Act. And so now we're really in this third phase where we are bringing together not only our mission, vision, and values, a lot of the work that we did today, also our new equity policy, bringing that in, and then, of course, any of the state regulations or laws that we need to follow. So, for instance, there are some behaviors or incidents that we have to have a certain response to per the state. So we looked at all of those pieces together. And since March, since Dr. Brogan came and gave you an update this spring, we have reviewed all those pieces and looked at it really with an equity lens. We had Tasha Potter also look through that and give us some feedback to consider as well. Looked at what the requirements were for codes of conduct. And then we had some subgroups look at districts' codes of conduct that had recently been updated. And luckily, some of the facilitators that are working with us through PERI or the Children's Institute have worked with other districts in the area. So the Syracuse City School District, RCSD, Greece, Wheatland, Chile, we looked at several of their codes of conduct to see were there pieces that we really liked, were there things that made us wonder about our own code of conduct. So those groups looked through and made some recommendations for us to consider going into the fall when the full committee gets back together. So we did make an agreement that we would have really a leveled piece to our code of conduct. That's the last piece we'll be working on, which will really show different levels of not just behaviors or infractions, but also levels of responses and then levels of interventions, including some really restorative and preventative pieces that could hopefully be used as more of a toolkit for teachers and support staff and administrators to help prevent those types of behaviors and to be more supportive of students. We also talked about a potential name change for the document to show that it will be more than just a typical code of conduct like we may have seen it in the past, but also something that would represent that it's a supportive document and provide some resources and tools for educators as well. And then we did set a timeline of hopefully being able to bring this back to the Board of Education by December of this year. So just to give you a little snippet of what you will see, this is a very 30,000-foot view. It's actually quite a detailed process from what we've seen in other districts' codes of conduct. So it looks similar to that flipped upside down RTI triangle that we're used to seeing, 3 levels. And this is similar that levels 1 and 2 are things that we would really respond to within the classroom. And then as we move farther down to those more serious infractions, those would be things that maybe something in a level 4 might result in something like a suspension. Within these codes of conduct, what we want to do is also define what those consequences are and how we use them. So not just when do you use a suspension, but how do you use it in a way that is about learning and that helps to make sure that it's an educational tool for students. So it will go through and actually list what types of infractions might fall under some of these levels, but really more importantly, and what we really liked about some of the codes of conduct that we saw, was that it also could provide even all the way down to language that teachers can use with students. So if a student's calling out in class, gives ideas for what teachers can do preventatively, and some common language that teachers and staff may be able to use together. So I could really see it be a resource that people could pull off the shelf, sit together with at a team meeting or with parents, and decide on ways that we can really be more responsive to the needs of our students. So our next steps, we are getting together the co-facilitators. Our friends from PERI and the Children's Institute will be meeting with us this summer to help just sketch out a framework for the group to consider when the full group comes together in the fall. And then we will piece these pieces together and then really look at a widespread sharing for feedback from multiple groups. So from all of our administrators, bringing it to the building level, getting parent feedback, community feedback, and then bringing it back to the board for feedback and hopefully approval by the new year. And that's all I have. If there's any questions?
Does anyone have questions? Go ahead, Ted.
There's a lot of great work here with a lot of moving parts. What do you see as the greatest challenge, if any, to being done by December?
I think looking at just how extensive this could become. So some of these, just the third phase, could be upwards of 40, 50 pages, but they really are worthwhile. So it's really finding something that will work for us and not just lifting something and applying it, because there's that balance of being too stringent and having things be too prescriptive, but also giving enough information there so that people can use it to give more of a consistent approach that also allows for the individualization. So there's that piece of it of creating the document first and then really wanting to make sure that we get as much feedback and as many eyes on the document as possible.
Anyone else? Okay. Shayna, thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right. May I have an approval of the minutes from June 21st, please? Thank you, Pete. Thanks, Robin. Any edits there? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. And our special meeting held on July 8th. May I have a motion to approve, please? Thanks, Renee and Sarah. Any edits? All in favor? Opposed? Oh, I'm sorry. You guys have to abstain. Yep, Ted and Pete. Thank you. All in favor again, just so I have a show of hands? Opposed? Motion carried. Board of Education reports, you just heard, we're just beginning, and you will be receiving a calendar of events. It'll be forthcoming any day now. We do have most of the meetings confirmed, but we are confirming venue as well. So one thing to consider at the table, we did receive an email from Becky Schultz on the 7th of July. If you could just check your emails for that. What she sent to you was a list of suggested topics for both information exchange and labor relations. I've already provided my input, but I would love it if I had additional input from all of you. If you could forward that either to me and I can give it to Becky, or you can send it directly to her. But if you could just, within the next, I would say, week, that would be great, because she is trying to already secure presenters for each one of those dates. Okay, dates to remember. Today we had a summer workshop, the first day of 2 days. Very productive. It was wonderful to see so many of our district leadership seated within our workshop, and I think that I'm very excited about the work that we're doing and seeing that through the conclusion tomorrow. So that was great work today. Tomorrow we are also meeting from 8 until 12. Obviously tonight we have our board meeting and reorg meeting, which we are in the middle of, and the 10th of August on Tuesday is our next scheduled meeting, and please note that it's at 5 p.m. Our summer meetings are typically earlier than our regular meetings in the fall as we start the school year, so just take note that that is a 5 p.m. start. Each year, the board signs a board governing mission that outlines our commitment to the tenets of our service as board members to the Pittsford Central School District. So tonight, I'd like, in honor of that tradition, I'd like to go around the table and each take a line of our board governing mission as well as our agreement regarding communications. So if we could start with the board governing mission. The Pittsford Central School District Board of Education, as the governing body of our school district,
values and upholds student success as the fundamental principle for all decisions.
Serves as the steward and guardian of the district's values, vision, and mission.
Leads proactively in district strategic and operational planning, setting strong, clear direction and policy.
Monitors district educational, administrative, and financial performance against clearly defined standards.
Ensures that constituencies contribute to the district's effectiveness.
Values and promotes positive and productive relations with the community.
Ensures that the district possesses necessary human, financial, and other resources.
Values and promotes a positive and productive board superintendent working partnership.
Engages all board members in the governance process.
Develops the governing skills of board members.
Promotes active teamwork on the board.
Takes accountability for its own performance as a governing body.
Practices the highest levels of ethics and integrity.
Actively advocates in areas that are in the best interest of the district.
Thanks, everybody. So what we'll do tonight is sign our agreement, and that will be posted on the website for anyone to see. And moving on to our agreement regarding communications. Board of Education members agree that
They will act and make decisions only as a 7-member board.
The board president is the spokesperson.
Awareness of public and human relations is critical.
they will help one another and constituents follow appropriate processes.
Issues and concerns will be shared with the superintendent and/or board president and individual board members as appropriate in a timely fashion.
It is critical to recognize that others see them as always wearing the board hat.
Never dialogue for the purpose of sharing opinions on matters before the board or influencing others.
They will be courteous listeners at board meetings and functions.
They will communicate at board meetings, functions by sharing ideas and perspectives during the discussions.
Okay, thank you, everybody. And if we could take action on that, if I could have a motion to approve both of those documents.
Second.
Thanks, Pete. Thanks, Ted. Any questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Financial report, Darren.
Thank you. We have a transportation contract for approximately 32 students to the extended school year program. Monroe and BOCES is providing that transportation for a sum of a little over $40,000.
Okay, may I have a motion to approve? Thanks, Jeff and Robin. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. That's it, right, Darren? Okay. I'm not used to you having it that quick. Okay, that's great.
There's more stuff if you want.
Human resource report. Sean.
Good evening. I have 3 things for you tonight. First for your consideration is the professional staff report. We have appointments for probationary staff, a change in status from part-time to probationary, and an SRP part-time appointment, a resignation from an SRP. One highlight, we have 2 termination of positions ending for remote teachers. So these were 2 teachers that came back and supported students in the remote environment, and they were of high value, and we really appreciate them. And an appointment for a network technician.
Okay, may I have a motion to approve the professional staff report? Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, Pete. Questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
Okay. Next for your consideration is the support staff report. We have appointments for school aide, cleaner, summer helpers, and then resignations for an on-call bus driver, a bus attendant, and 1 cleaner.
May I have a motion to approve the support staff report?
So moved.
Thanks, Ted. Thanks, Renee. Questions? All in favor? Did you have your hand up? Okay, I'm just looking at Renee. Okay. Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you. And finally is the per diem substitute and special salaries. This is something that we do every year, so it's just those special assignments that we need your approval for, and that's for your consideration.
May I have a motion, please? Jeff and Sarah, questions?
Just
Just a quick question.
On.
Quick question on the substitute teachers. How many hours is that typically in a day?
Sub teachers, it's usually 6.5.
Okay. Any other questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sean. Special education report, Elizabeth. Thank you. Superintendent's report, Mike.
Thank you. There is a need for an executive session this evening, and the focus will be to discuss matters which will imperil the public safety if disclosed.
Okay, may I have a motion, please? Thanks, Robin.
Second.
Ted, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
Next, I want to provide the board with a brief update around the use of federal funds. This year, we received two primary sources for federal funds. The first was called the American Rescue Plan. It's known as ARP. And the second one is the Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act, CRRSA. So some key points to consider, and none of this should be new for anyone. We received approximately $6.6 million that we're able to use over the course of the next 3 years. One of the things that is important to recognize, again, is that this money is 100% separate from the general fund budget. So in other words, we cannot use the $6.6 million as part of our budgeting for any of our next 3 years' budgets or any budgets proceeding. This money can't be used to decrease tax cap. This is a whole separate fund. After 3 years, this funding goes away. The primary purpose of the funding is to use the money as a response to COVID. And there's a lot of different criteria that we have to adhere to, or criteria that we can choose from in order to allocate the $6.6 million over the 3 years. One of the stipulations for use of the funds is that there needed to be stakeholder feedback, which I'll talk about shortly. And then the other key aspect of this funding in our plan that I'm about to propose tonight is that it can be amended by the district. So in other words, after 3 months of students coming back, we can say, boy, we didn't anticipate this. We need to shift money here. This may happen in year 2 where we need to shift money. But we have that capacity over the course of 3 years to amend our plan. And the other area I put is that New York State can also possibly amend the plan, and that's the unknown. We continuously hear that there is more information coming from New York State as far as what is acceptable or new things that may be acceptable, etc. As far as stakeholder feedback, I received feedback from our Parent Advisory Council early on. This was the very first group that I asked for their voice to be heard. And through that meeting, what they provided was the need or request for instructional challenge at the middle school. And the rationale for that is that the students at the elementary school have instructional challenge. The students at the high school have challenge based on choice of course and different levels of honors and AP and AIS and et cetera. And coming off of a year in change of our students that needed to be challenged, not having access to that type of challenge. Also, the parents requested that we take a look at mental health supports, promote restorative practices, have a focus on equity, and also look into a program such as Thought Exchange, which is a mechanism to get feedback back and forth through whatever stakeholder group you choose. Next, I went to the district planning team. District planning team also has a wide array of staff members, from administrators to paraprofessionals to clerical to community members to parents, etc. Again, they echoed instructional challenge, they echoed mental health and SEL, and then they went into a need for more Tier 1 intervention, which essentially are best practices for a classroom teacher to allow for students that may be struggling in a typical setting, ways to overcome that struggle. Instructional coaches on a more broader base, recognizing the fact that particularly we felt that math was the hardest to teach in remote learning and 2.5 days a week at the secondary level, and recognizing that students may be coming back with math deficits and needing instructional coaches to be able to support teachers in helping how to best differentiate students that are struggling with math. Also an equity coordinator or an equity coordinator type position, which mirrors the Parent Advisory Council's request. Along the lines of mental health, additional counseling for our students, professional development specifically in areas around interventions. Interventions that range from academic interventions to interventions for how to ascertain if students are going through some type of trauma coming back and how best to intervene. We also, at the district planning team, talked about support learning, summer support, and having to allocate money for remote learning with the unknown of what New York State Department of Health is going to share for our requirements for next year. Also along the lines of remote learning, should we choose, we can tap into money that we've spent towards remote learning last year and allocate that for the future. So last year, I believe we spent around $1.6 million in addition for the remote learning model. So should we choose, we can also use funds to offset that. All of our administrators met. It's called our PDLT committee, and again echoed the need for additional support with equity. Again, echoed Tier 1 interventions, but added Tier 2 interventions, which essentially means that when students come back to us in the fall, if the global classroom best practices aren't working as far as supporting students, that second level of support is needed, and what would that look like? Also, mental health supports came up, math supports again, summer support, responding to trauma, and remote learning. So you're seeing themes regardless of the groups. We also asked for feedback from our support services teams and our Board of Education. And the concept of not only mental health, but physical health, our safety and security of our physical plant, knowing that we're going to have to come back to the reality that we unfortunately lived prior to the pandemic, where we contended with school shootings and violence, with the added layer now of cybersecurity and needing to keep a fine eye on how we are protecting our assets. We also, for a lot of reasons, districts across the state are running into issues with hiring and retaining some real critical staff members as they relate to bus drivers, food service, and maintenance. And I want to pause there for a second. I think that sometimes we take those groups and staff members for granted, and they are the foundation of our schools. Without them, I'm not sure how schools happen the way we know them. So making sure we're able to staff at the minimum amount our maintenance workers, which we're short on now, our bus drivers, which are short on now, and our food service workers, which we're short on now, is going to be critical. Again, the concept of remote learning and the unknowns of what that learning model will have in store for us in the future, and the extent we want to remediate the past for funding. And then infrastructure and systems that would include things such as ventilation and screenings, and then increased food service costs. Given a loss of revenue for food service, we are allowed to go back in time to remediate some of those losses. And if we think about why we had losses in food service, it makes perfect sense. We had half the time of our secondary students in school buying lunches. Despite many efforts to curb staff, reassign staff, et cetera, we still experience losses in those areas. So I've labeled this my initial proposed plan. Again, it's initial because this can change at any moment's notice. We have the authority to amend our plans throughout. The first is actually in action right now, and that's only because we found out about these allocations very late in the spring, and summer was about to start. And knowing that our students needed summer programs, we have begun summer programs at the secondary level. And our hope is to grow these programs in years 2 and 3 in order to target skills. So we have never in our past had a full-blown summer school program, skills program, and that takes a lot of thinking and coordination. And I think there's a lot of value moving forward if we're able to look at the learning loss that happens over the summer and continue to target students that could benefit from summer programming. Similarly, summer mental health needs are being addressed right now. We have increased our Pittsford Youth Services over the summer, and we've also increased our Pittsford Central School District mental health staff to our students and families, offering counseling, both individual and group, to support transitions from pre-pandemic to post-pandemic. And also we're hoping to look at our summer mental health program similar to our summer academic program and growing that in years 2 and 3. We more than likely will be offering some level of remote learning. Prior to the end of the school year, I did ask principals to reach out to all of the families to see what families, the extent they would require remote learning, given a particular scenario that would prohibit them from coming back to school full-time. For example, students that are immunocompromised or have family members who are immunocompromised and are unable to come back right now. At this time, we are at a very small amount of families that have committed to this. There are some schools of our 9 where we have 0 families that are stating that they have to come back remote learning. So the unknown as we went into this plan was, would we have 50, would we have 100, would we have 200, what would the guidelines state, et cetera. But we are really down to about a handful of students across the district. Additionally, recruiting and retaining essential support service positions. And then looking at our cyber and physical plant security measures and review. Thinking about what it is we need to do to be more adept relative to our physical plant and physical safety, as well as our technological safety of our data. And again, I'm recommending that we set money aside for infrastructure and systems maintenance and repairs. And this could be a range of things that we would be able to use to keep our students safe, including air quality, for example. And then last, the food service cost and deficit mitigation. Again, we were in school for half the time at the secondary level in finding ways to mitigate those losses as part of this plan. So, more specifically, we are recommending an equity coordinator. And to be very transparent here, the title is not definite. But what we do know is that we do need support with our Inclusivity Initiative. We started this initiative about 3 years ago. We need all of our students to be successful, and we need support with that. And so I'm not sure if this will be an equity coordinator, if it will be an equity director, if it will be an equity consultant, what that will exactly look like. What we've done so far is we have sent draft job descriptions to our IAC for feedback, and I believe that feedback just came back, right, Shayna? I sent it to our different stakeholder groups, our presidents for our administrators, our teachers for feedback. That feedback will be collated. It will then be sent to our district planning team for feedback, and then we'll be able to propose something to the Board of Education around a job description and title. This also has been presented to the Parent Advisory Council as a suggestion, or I believe it was PTSA, and open to feedback from anyone that wants to share. We are recommending Tier 1 professional development for our staff. We are recommending instructional coaches at the secondary level. So that would be the middle school and high school to help support differentiated instruction and evidence-based AIS strategies, as we know students are going to be coming to us with various levels of gaps. We are recommending instructional challenge be added back at the middle level. We are recommending that additional math mental health staff equivalent to, actually I believe it's going to be 3.0 FTEs for staff for next year. The plan shall remain flexible, and we will amend as we need to throughout the course of the 3 years. We also continuously wait for agency guidance as it's been evolving, and we're planning for change. So at this point, I'd like to ask the board if there are any questions relative to the proposed plan, the direction of use of federal funds, if there's concerns about buckets that we're putting funds in, or in any type of discussions that you'd like to have.
Yeah, Mike, I have a quick question, hopefully, about with respect to plan amendments coming from the state. Do you have any sense of what that might look like?
The only thing I can share there is that almost at the end of every document that you read, it will say more information is forthcoming. And so we continuously wait for more information. Right now, what we have to do in order to qualify for the funds is to have a plan posted on our website by July 15th of this current July 15th, and that we can amend in accordance with any changes that the state may bring to us in the future.
So these are federal funds. Are they funneled through SED then to the school district?
Yeah, it's interesting. So the reason I think it took so long for us to get any guidance around this is because they are federal funds, and the state and the feds had different opinions on the use of the funds until they finally settled on some common ground. Darren, I don't know if you want to add anything to that question.
Depending on which portion of the funds, they call it 90% ESSER funds, so the state's able to keep 10% of it. And they're required
Darren,
from the state
can you just turn your mic?
for administrative practices. But most of the funds do go through the state. There's a small sector that, once approved, will come directly to us.
And you'll notice with our funds how they are very disproportionate to funds across the state for other school districts as well. So we have, while it's a wonderful, it's actually amazing. I'm very happy that we have leeway to use money to help support bringing students back, but our slice of the pie is very much small compared to other districts across the state.
My question about changes down the road is, will we be able to make amendments unilaterally, or will those amendments require approval?
So we can make them unilaterally, is my understanding right now. They just have to be posted on the website.
I just have a quick question regarding comments Darren made. The 10% that the state can take, is that 10% from the total amount that it's been given to the state from the federal government? Okay, I just want a clarification on that. Thank you.
It's also not, technically, we do not need board action to approve the plan, but I have placed it on the agenda as board action, just in case the state comes back and says that you need board action moving forward.
Well, and there's a deadline too, so it probably makes sense to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to, envisioning a scenario that has, and it's not too far-fetched, where the district and the state may differ on how best to apply these funds.
They have. We have. Yes. Can I just answer yes?
Yes.
There certainly are differences, and if we had carte blanche, then we would probably maybe use the funds a little bit differently. But again, I have to take a step back and say these are funds that are being used. When we think about the buckets, we're looking at mental health buckets.
Right.
We're looking at academic buckets. We're looking at health and safety buckets. We're looking at inclusivity buckets, and so we're able to use the money and some in summer learning buckets. So we're happy to have the money come in.
Yeah. It's a gift to us.
How was that for a diplomatic answer?
Well put. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Other questions? Then I would ask for the board's consideration to approve our initial draft plan, which will be posted on the website tomorrow or Thursday.
So moved.
Okay, thank you.
All in favor? Opposed?
Just a couple other announcements. We are opening schools next year, which is exciting. I don't foresee anything that would disallow schools to be anything than what we've been planning for since last spring. So we are scheduling students full-time, K through 12. We will be in person. We will be normal hours as usual. And again, I'm feeling very fortunate that we have such a small amount of students that are in a position where they have to choose between remote and in person due to medical conditions. So we are moving full steam ahead with regards to staffing and sectioning and looking at going into next year with the understanding that we're going to be full-time. The only things that we don't know relative to next year are what the New York State Department of Health guidelines will share with us around different protocols. So we do not know if New York State Department of Health is going to change disinfecting protocol, if they're going to change morning screenings, or if they're going to mandate masking for students that aren't vaccinated. Those are our unknowns. So we're not too focused on the unknowns right now, other than we're excited to know that we're going to be back next year. I would also just share that our advocacy work is still very alive and well. We have created a user-friendly advocacy letter on our website where you can copy and paste and send to the governor. I don't think this is a time to be complacent, but it's a time really, if we can rally our troops and make sure the governor is hearing what we feel is necessary for schools next year, which for the most part is aligned with the CDC guidance at this point. So we just await for New York State Department of Health guidance, but we are planning 100% on being full-time next year. And then the last thing I have, actually two other things. Today is day 1 of 2 for our summer workshop. And you heard Pete and Renee talk about our why. We spent a good portion of the day doing a lot of collaborative work around identifying the different whys relative to continuing our work around inclusion is critical for us. So if we think about pre-pandemic, 2 years prior to that, we recognize that all of our students need a lot of different things to be successful and to feel included, to feel a sense of belonging, et cetera, in the district. And we need to continue that work. And we're excited to do that. I think this will be a full year 3 of being engaged in this work. And tomorrow, our goal will be to set specific goals that we can articulate and communicate to the public relative to our inclusivity plan. Also knowing that a big part of this work is going to involve communicating with stakeholders, both in writing and in person. So knowing that any misconceptions, any dialogue that needs to be had, we are going to be very planful around having different opportunities for feedback, such as forums, and being able to have the back and forth where we're not constrained to the timelines for a public comment in a board meeting, for example. And so we're looking to target either the end of the summer or the beginning of the fall to be able to process this great work with our community. Then the last thing I have is the first reading of Policy Recommendation 5633. And one of the things, and that's gender-neutral single occupancy bathrooms. That first reading will be posted tomorrow for anyone to view. So this is kind of something new that we've instituted last year for the sake of transparency. Whenever there is a first reading, we will actually post it so the community can see it before it's brought back to the board for a second reading. Essentially, this is a policy that aligns with New York State educational law that says any bathrooms that we have that are single occupancy, that means one person at a time, need to become gender neutral. And that will be for the board's consideration for approval at our next board meeting. And I think that's all I have.
May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
Okay, Pete and Ted. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Any old business? New business? Public comment. So this is the time when the Pittsford Board of Education values transparency and the public comments are made during meetings. As such, the Pittsford Board of Education actively provides for this agenda item at its regular meetings. Board of Education meetings are not public forums. Rather, they're business meetings held in the public where dialogue is not normally conducted with audience members. The purpose of this agenda item is for the board to receive respectful and constructive feedback, opinions, and information. These comments are then taken under advisement by the Board of Education and the Superintendent of Schools. Respect and civility are required during these meetings, particularly as we have students routinely attending as part of their coursework. Comments should be in reference to an interest or topic, not an individual. Each speaker will have the floor for no more than 3 minutes, and the board president reserves the right to limit the total amount of speaking time. So with that, we do have 2 comments that were submitted via email to our board clerk. And the first one is from Christopher Dalgas from 3 Broken Hill Road in Pittsford. It says, esteemed members of the Pittsford Central School District Board of Education, as the talking heads of the media fan the flames of this month's culture war flashpoint, I want to say that I'm pretty certain critical race theory, or CRT, is not being taught in Pittsford schools. In fact, it's safe to say that the opposite is true, as Pittsford seems to dabble around the edges of fully diverse and inclusive curricular change. The high-profile missteps made by some teachers around race including one that made national news earlier this year, shows that more attention needs to be paid on how we teach our children about race and diversity. It's more than Black History Month and Juneteenth. History is hard, but Pittsford teachers are brilliant and will find ways to make it developmentally appropriate and still honor the facts. What they need are the curricula and professional development to make the core subjects inclusive, culturally relevant, and contemporary. There are glimmers of change and some excellent elective offerings around diversity at the high school level, but I would encourage our district to go all in and commit to a fully inclusive curriculum starting at kindergarten. Pittsford students deserve no less. We have a second comment from Bonnie McGeed, and she lives at 19 Chatham Woods. I want to commend the school for their multi-layered prevention strategies to keep all our kids safe from COVID this past year. The distance, masking, and cleaning seem to work very successfully. I, like many parents, am thinking about what's going to happen this fall. It is great that 12-year-olds and over can get vaccinated at this time, but we're still in a situation where none of the elementary school students can be vaccinated, and many middle school students are not yet eligible. And Delta is on the rise, and with cross-country extracurriculars, camps, and vacation trips, it won't stop at the town boundary. I want to urge the school district to follow CDC guidelines issued July 9th, which called for all unvaccinated people to continue to wear masks indoors in schools. This will help protect faculty and staff who cannot be vaccinated, as well as send a message that even though 85+% of adults in Pittsford are vaccinated, Pittsford still cares about their younger students. We've come too far to drop the ball at this point and just sacrifice our youngest kids, even if people are tired.
So if I could just give a quick comment
Yes.
to that. This evening, you heard board members, our board clerk, and myself take our oath of office. So that means that we will follow New York State Constitution laws. And while CDC guidelines have come out, we have yet to see New York State Department of Health guidelines come out. And I'm sure that those guidelines will be focusing on the issues that this parent or community member has brought up, and their legitimate concerns. And so you'll have your answer shortly. We're not sure if the governor is going to default back to local health agencies, or if they're going to make a blanket statement, or if it's going to be based on infection rates, or what the actual criteria is. So certainly more to come, and when there's information that we can share, we certainly will.
And then we have,
Two people with Mike Shaughnessy and
okay. So Mike Shaughnessy, would you like to stand at right here at the microphone?
I think this point I brought up, can you hear me?
Sure.
Yes.
I think the point I brought up was in parallel with the commentary from one of the other parents. And I noticed as I looked at the curriculum, and first of all, Mike Shaughnessy from 4 Standish Way raised 4 children in the district, but now I have grandchildren in the district that will be going to Jeff Road. And I noticed that, when I looked at the curriculum, that there was a pilot program that was considering race, class, inequities, as far as, I think, a 2 or 3 year type of concept that they were going to evaluate. Along the lines of some of the CRT that's out there today, just wondering if that pilot program is, what the status is, and what's the the qualifications for someone to spearhead that program. Maybe it ties into the equity coordinator concept as well. Don't know.
Thank you for that question.
And I did have one other thing on the remote learning.
Mm-hmm.
I was just curious: does the remote learning student get the same type of curriculum offered to them as the in-school students?
So the remote learning students, more than likely, will be serviced through a regional program through
Right.
BOCES, and it will focus more on the courses needed for graduation versus the robust program with all the electives that we have. So there will be limitations in scope for remote learners. And to be honest, most of the I think we received, one high school request, and the others were very much either not sure, and I think it was three other students that were not sure, or it could be temporary. So for the temporary students, we may not even do a regional network. We're still doing a little bit more digging if we treat them as a student that we would if they were out of school because of sickness for a month.
Right.
So we're working through that part. Relative to your other questions, we have a lot of work to do communicating what I feel is a lot of misinformation around CRT and the school's role in that. What CRT is, what it isn't. I will share that this is our third year of focusing on how to support all of our students. We're going to continue that work. We do recognize that within all of the diversity and all the types of diversity that are in our schools, that there's things that we're going to need to do better moving forward. And one of them is certainly around race. We are looking at pilot programs at the high school, which involve different prompts that we piloted for the first year last spring. And at the elementary level, Melanie, I don't know if you just want to talk a little bit about some of the work that's underway.
So at 8th and 11th grade, we've involved in a countywide pilot of some curriculum for those two grade levels. But at the K-5 level, actually last week, we had a team of about 30 teachers representing all 6 elementary grade levels working together to develop an inquiry unit for each of their grade levels related to equity, diversity, social justice, and civic mindedness. So we're looking at building those themes in throughout our curriculum, starting at kindergarten, moving all the way up. Last week we were focusing specifically on places to embed this within our social studies curriculum. There's also been a lot of efforts around looking at our text selection in ELA K-12 to make sure that it's more diverse and shares multiple perspectives. So it's ongoing, big, complicated work, but we're very excited about it, and we're very committed to doing the work.
And I think that ties into our commitment to making sure that we are highly communicative and transparent about what that will look like in the form of how we communicate. So website, in-person forums, Q&As with parents, etc.
So that will include communication with the parents only on the website?
No. So it will include communication to the parents, to our stakeholders for question and answers in person,
and
feedback
will this
forums.
equity coordinator be involved with that?
So we are in the process right now of even finishing a job description for this person, but I would anticipate that this person would have tentacles into the work, sure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have one more. Sadaha?
Hi, my name is Sadaha Tavakumar Slavin. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I live at 3 Warder Drive. About a month ago, I stood here and spoke about the importance of having ASL interpreters present at board meetings, which would then result in meetings being accessible and welcoming to all. At the same board meeting, a person complained about a Calkins Road Pride Month morning announcement about gender-neutral words. The announcement had provided examples of what these words are, such as parent instead of mother and father, spouse or partner instead of husband or wife, sibling instead of brother or sister. Unfortunately, after the person complained, the announcement was changed. The examples were removed. Per the Savvy Ally, Chapter 9, page 100, giving concrete examples so people can grasp and understand are the truest tools of education. This was a missed teaching opportunity. So I ask, what does sanitizing the announcement show students and families? People in elected leadership positions often ask how to bring those who oppose or don't believe the same kind of concept along. The way is to explain and to teach. The way is for our leaders, all of you, to take a stance in what you all believe. Having your words match your actions. Is it really inclusivity and equity for all, or just the majority? Your actions should give us the answer. Thank you.
Thanks, Fataha. Okay. May I have a motion to adjourn, please? Okay, Robin and Sarah. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.